Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, race number 8 at the fairgrounds on Saturday. The $75,000 Blushing KD Stakes for fillies and mares. Let's take a look at this field. We'll be traveling the about distance of 1 1/16 miles. It's a pretty solid field, Matt, and your morning line favorite is the number 7. Take These Chains, who returned from a lengthy layoff for a new trainer, the high percentage conditioner Brad Cox, and she showed much improved early speed en route to a gate-to-wire win.
Yeah, she was impressive that day. There's really not much other to say about that. I think the most important, or I don't even want to say most important, but the most fascinating thing about that was what you just said, that newfound speed. And if you think that that's sort of the running style that she wants to employ now as a 5-year-old, soon to be 6-year-old, I think that could potentially work against her in a spot like this, just because I think there's plenty of speed signed on in this race. The interesting thing now is going to be to find out, does she revert back to those running style that she had when she was with Chad here in New York, where you come from off of it and you try to make that one run. If she's more forward, I think it could work against her.
I think they'll try to take her back, not to last, but I think she'll be in a stalking position. And Timeform US agrees with me as we take a look at the pace projector, where they have the number 7, Take These Chains, in a comfortable spot in 3rd. I think there were 2 reasons why she made the lead last time out. 1, she was really fresh off of that long layoff. And 2, there just didn't seem to be any other pace. I realized the turf course was rated as good, but in a mile race, the half mile was completed in 50 seconds flat. Take These Chains was able to make the lead, I think, because of an easy pace, because she was fresh. I think she's willing to sit off a couple of horses this time around. And one of them is the number 2, I'm Betty G, who last time out couldn't get to her customary position on the front because when you're facing Fahan Moura, you just don't get the lead.
I was going to say, Fahan Moura's game. She's going to go out there and just blaze the trail going 45 and 46. I'm Betty G. We know her best game is when she's out there forward placed. If you believe that pace projector, and if you think she doesn't take too much heat, she's certainly dangerous in here. There's just a part of me that believes there's some other runners in here that they're going to be intent on being forward. Maybe not outright dueling on the lead, but I think I'm Betty G is going to feel a little bit of the heat as they turn for home, and perhaps that softens her up enough.
I agree. I agree with Timeform US that the pace may not be fast with a red bar, but I do think that the pace will be fair, and maybe that'll work against I'm Betty G, who all in all had a good trip last time out in the Goldacova, sitting the pocket, but they just kind of ran away from her at the quarter pole, and she plodded on evenly to finish 6th. Some class relief, maybe she gets to the front, but maybe she faces pressure from horses like the 8 Full of Zip and the 9 Superiority Complex. Let's talk about the 8 Full of Zip first. This is a horse that has not stepped on turf in a very long time, stretching out after being completely overmatched by a very hot synthetic horse, Hot Shot Anna, who came back to win 2 in a row with buyers of 94 and 99. I think she'll be forward stretching out. I don't think she has on Betty G's speed.
No, I agree with that, and I guess I just kind of look at it and say I don't really see any race on her page that makes her a true contender in a spot like this, but you can't help but notice, I know they're not common ownership, but Superiority Complex is also trained by Mike Stidham. You do wonder perhaps there's a scenario where something's worked out where the idea is the 8, you go up there, you ensure that there is some pace, and we hope that Superiority Complex, although she won outright on the lead in her most recent start, she's at least shown the ability to sit in with that outside draw. Maybe it's a little bit of cat and mouse kind of thing.
And I was just going to ask you about Superiority Complex. Last time out, Stidham put blinkers on, and Joe Bravo was on for the first time, and that combination allowed her to get to the lead. And when you look at the fractions, the half and 49 and 1, you don't expect Timeform US to color code them red. And I was surprised that some of those interior fractions were color coded red. Apparently, Superiority Complex was really motoring on the lead, and she kept right on going. Now, the field she beat, I question the quality of that field. I question whether she can make the lead off of I'm Betty G, but I think she's going to be a lot closer than the pace projector has her. I could see her sitting 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking 3rd, where if the 8 is the one that goes up there and pushes I'm Betty G, perhaps Superiority Complex takes up that 3rd position out in the clear. The interesting thing about that most recent run, the N2X, like you say, Timeform had that red fraction in there in the middle. I wonder if it was a bit of a product of that second quarter, because if you go into Formulator, you can break them down into incremental splits and see what each of the horses ran themselves. She got the opening quarter in 23.77. That second quarter, though, she throttled it way back to 25.6, and then the 3rd quarter, the red one from from Timeform US, they cranked it back up to 24-2. So it almost feels like it was a bit of an accordion effect there with Bravo, kind of drop anchor a little bit, give her a breather, and then open up, spread eagle the field.
Here's a formulator fact for superiority complex. Over the past 5 years, trainer Michael Stidham, with last out winners, older winners in non-graded stakes turf routes at the fairgrounds, 33%, $2.09 ROI. He does gear up for this meet. A horse that has speed, but I think could work out a nice ground-saving, pace-tracking trip is down towards the rail. That's Prado's Sweet Ride, who just won a graded stakes race on dirt in her most recent start, but she is more than capable on the turf. Second in the Grade 3 Modesty handicap earlier this year, and 2 starts back at Hawthorne. While she was beaten at even money against fellow Illinois breds, she was beaten by a good one, the classy Streamline, and she might have been compromised by a lack of pace that day.
Yeah, this is an honest mare. She just shows up, she runs her race. Hard to knock a record of 8 for 30 overall and 12 other times for minor awards. She's a winner on dirt. She's a winner on turf. You name it, throw it her way. She can adapt to it. I do like that versatility where she doesn't have to be outright on the lead in order to win. I kind of feel like her best game is probably behind her. I think she's probably going to top out somewhere in that low 90 range. That still makes her a contender in here, but I just think we're still a long enough time away from maybe her A races. I think those are in the rear view. I don't know that she has a 97 or a 98 left in the tank.
Vagabond Princess, the number 3, placed in a couple of stakes races at the fairgrounds early in 2018, and her last race I thought was pretty good. If you think the Take These Chains really had an insurmountable advantage getting loose on the lead off the layoff, Vagabond Princess was rallying from last that day and picked up some horses in the stretch. It appears she's improving. The problem is she really only has one figure that makes her competitive, and that's through 18 starts.
Yeah, and the other problem I have with her, go through and take a look at her overall body of work outside of winning that N2X level race last year. Whenever she's been up against better horses, whether it's in stakes or N3 level, she's just not capable of getting over the hump, and I just have a hard time imagining her being able to do it here, perhaps underneath.
Dubara adds blinkers for Brendan Walsh. Perhaps she'll show a bit more focus. Perhaps she'll be a bit more forwardly placed. Now, she was wired by superiority complex last time out, and I wonder if she would have been closer if, as you mentioned, that accordion effect of the pace didn't work to superiority complex's favor.
Yeah, it's possible. Blinkers going on. We'll find out if that keeps her a little bit closer to the front end this time around. Second off the bench, I'd expect a forward move here, but she's another one. Really, outside of that run 3 starts back and that one Dreamer, I just don't really see a race that's fast enough to be a real contender.
Another horse that could add to the pace is a long shot. That's the 5 19th Street, claimed out of her most recent start by trainer Joe Sharp, who immediately switches her to the turf, immediately stretches her out in distance. She's only raced once on the turf in her career. Very hard to rate. It was a 5.5 furlong race at the fairgrounds earlier this year. Maybe she shows a little bit of speed. The blinkers are coming off. I think she'll be close, but she might be class compromised.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what you get. I expect her to be forward. To me, she's kind of the X factor in this race, because if it is a scenario, even with the equipment coming off, if she's a little bit hard to handle early and she wants to go, perhaps this thing heats up a little bit more than maybe the pace projector would suggest. And if that's the case, could potentially set it up for somebody coming from off of it.
And that would be our top selection. So we're hoping the pace is fast. But boy, Matt, you and I have been burned so many times by Beau Recall over the years now. We know on her best day, if you give her pace in a clean trip, she's going to come with a strong late run. And listen, she was 40-1 in the Goldacova, 24-1 in the Rodeo Drive. Maybe she was simply overmatched in those races. But there have also been cases where she's been favored against weaker horses, and she's kind of run to the level of that competition as well. In Brad Cox, I trust this time. We saw Cox work wonders first time out with Take These Chains. This is the first race for Brad Cox with Beau Recall. Let's get some pace in a long fairground stretch.
It's kind of how I'm looking at it, and also this distance, I think this is going to work for her. Look, I've been wrong about her. I thought she was going to end up being one of the top sort of Southern California grass horses all along, and it just never felt like she took that step forward from early on as a 3-year-old. She just continues to run those middling races. Now she's in with Brad Cox. I think there's pace in this race. This distance I don't think is a problem for her, and I agree with you. I feel like each of those past 3 races, you can make some excuses. Not enough pace in the Goldacova, overmatched anyway. 1.25 miles isn't what she wants, even though initially that's what I thought she really wanted. And 3 starts back, no pace in that race either. So I think there's a scenario at least where you can make the argument that perhaps she's a little bit better than the page would indicate. And if we get the 9-2 on the morning line, I'd be more than content taking that.
Give me numbers.
I'm going to go 6-7-9-2.
I'm going 6-2-7-9 in the Blushing KD Stakes. Race number 8 at the Fairgrounds on Saturday is an approximate post time of 3:53 Central. Best of luck.